The United Nations publicly refused last week to work with the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, meaning they would rather have Gaza people die of horrible starvation than give up their political angles of trying to marginalize Israel and allow the food to actually reach those people. Israel could have ended this conflict by bombing this from the sky. We did not need to drop telegrams to everybody there. We didn't need to move the population. We lost 4 soldiers today. They never had to die. Yep. They didn't need to go into a tank. We could have taken care of everything from the air. The only reason we did not, and we know where our hostages are, there's plenty of other areas where Hamas is hiding, is because we are trying in the most difficult situation to kill Hamas that is planned in advance to hide behind their own people, knowing that when they die, I will go on Piers Morgan. Piers Morgan will say Israel doesn't have a chance. You can't defeat Hamas. They've recruited 5 times the people.
How are you guys doing? This is Sahar TV, and in this video, we'll see one of the best speakers for Israel on Piers Morgan answer every single point in an amazing, precise way. Let's take a look.
Well, joining me now is Major Doran Spielman. He's the former spokesman for the IDF and author of When the Stones Speak. Major Spielman, thank you very much indeed for coming back to Uncensored. You were just listening to Tom Fletcher there, the United Nations aid chief. What is your response?
You know, I think it's tragic, Piers. Watching your show, seeing you softball questions to Tom, who's a known virulent anti-Israel player. This is the same guy, maybe who was even on your show, that screamed to the world 14,000 babies are going to die in 48 hours, and then apologized and walked it back because of a lack of proof. This is the same guy that was UK ambassador, as you know, to Lebanon from 2011 to 2015, oversaw Hezbollah's growth in Lebanon as a terror organization, and then said he thought they should be a part of the government and they shouldn't be marginalized. This is a person who's overseen this humanitarian agency and acts like all of a sudden they can't bring aid to people. You and I both seen the videos. There are thousands of tons of United Nations aid that are sitting directly at those crossings as we speak today. There are dozens of videos out there, and they are rotting for one reason. They refuse to accept that aid as long as Israel works through the Gaza Humanitarian Fund. They have refused. If they really care, if he cares about the tragic starvation in Gaza, he should be looking towards the air, the water, Israel, the United States, the UN. But he comes on here and he says, oh, we want everyone to work. They flat out publicly refused. The United Nations publicly refused last week to work with the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, meaning they would rather have Gaza people die of horrible starvation than give up their political angles of trying to marginalize Israel and allow the food to actually reach those people. So that is the situation with Tom Fletcher. I think if Sinwar had a portrait on his wall, it would be of Tom Fletcher. He's doing Sinwar's job for him, and Sinwar's laughing in the grave because this is, Piers, his fantasy come true.
That's what he was planning this whole time. He was planning for Israel to invade back. He was planning for people to look like they're starving. He was planning for the IDF to move people from one place to another. So then people will say they're displaced by the IDF. Everything is planned to the little details.
Predicted the show. He predicted the interview of you softballing Tom and now asking me difficult questions because he knew one thing. He knew he could count on the UN as his queen no matter what Israel does. Israel moves the Gaza population out of the way. And here Tom Fletcher says 88% of all people have been displaced. They weren't displaced. They were moved by Israel at cost to Israeli soldiers' lives out of the way of a war zone because we want to keep them safe. He knew he could count on the UN because Tom Fletcher and his buddies, before October 7th, for the 8 years before October 7th, passed 154 condemnations in the General Assembly against Israel. Against all other countries combined, they passed 70. So Israel's apparently worse than Rwanda, than what happened in Cambodia, than Russia's invasion of Ukraine. They were the worst on earth. Otherwise, perhaps they're simply anti-Israel. So you'll forgive me and the Israeli people if we are slightly have a little bit of scrutiny against Tom and the United Nations, and we can show that the aid is on the border. And if they would bring it to the people instead of politically engaging, we could help solve some of the hunger, the desperate hunger that is taking place in Gaza.
I don't think actually that the Israeli government cares about the plight of Gazans at all. The reality is, so far, about 70% of Gaza has been completely destroyed.
How can you say that the Israeli government doesn't care when we simply put our soldiers at risk, when we release millions of pamphlets and text messages and phone calls and knock-knock bombs and create humanitarian aid distribution centers with GHF and making sure that people get their meals and vaccinate people against polio? How can you say that we don't take the extra mile when we can simply just bomb the crap out of Gaza from the sky? We can. Any other country would be allowed to, but Israel is not allowed to for some reason. I don't know why.
The remaining population have been herded around now into ever smaller pockets of what is remaining there. You've got people like Smodrich, hard right members of the government, openly talking now about cleansing Gaza of Palestinians, which would be ethnic cleansing. He wants to kick them all out of the country. Then I hear Israelis say, well, he doesn't speak for the government. He's the bloody finance minister. Of course he does. And so you've got people like this saying, well, yeah, we're going to cleanse Gaza of all Palestinians. And then I get people on like yourself, and you come on and you say, no, that's not the plan. No, we just want to help the Gazan people. And the last thing we want to do is kill innocent people and so on. And yet somehow you've managed to kill over 60,000 Palestinians, having lost 1,200 on October the 7th.
Interesting that Piers Morgan is not distinguishing between the combatants and the civilians and the people that their ages were reduced from 18 to 17 to be considered as children. Interesting why he's not doing it. Like he's speaking the Hamas propaganda.
Horrendous terror attack, which I've condemned from the moment it happened. You've now killed 60,000 plus Palestinians. You've got 20,000 children who've been killed. You've now got starving and emaciated children, images being beamed to the world on an hourly basis.
Images being posted and then withdrawn by the New York Times, who posted an image of a sick kid blaming Israel for starving him when he had a disease, and then they retracted that claim. So Piers is eating that crap like cereal.
Many of whom are now beginning to die literally of hunger. And this is started by a 3-month blockade, deliberate policy of a blockade, starving the innocent Gazans of food and water and aid and other things. And you put it all together, and you now have almost the entire world looking at Israel saying, what on earth are you doing?
See, that's the funny thing. How come the adults look completely healthy and fat and chubby with food in their belly, and the select few children that they choose are skinny? Why do they choose specifically children with medical diseases? Because they know people react better to children. That's why.
When are you going to stop this? And yet still, and I say this with respect to you, still people like you will come on, Major Spillman, and you'll say there's nothing to see here. There's nothing that can be reported because you won't allow media to go and investigate this independently. Nothing to see here. We are doing everything by the book. We're the most moral army in the world. And actually anyone like the United Nations, who I thought spoke very eloquently and very straightforwardly about the problem and made it clear he doesn't want to be remotely partisan here. But when I couple what he said with what British doctors are talking about in the few remaining hospitals, where they're talking about children being used as target practice. Now, I would love to see a...
What? There's absolutely no evidence of soldiers using children as target practice. And the reason I'm saying that is because nobody can provide me a single evidence of soldiers shooting children. And you can see the soldier shooting the child. You can't. People upload whatever they want. They upload themselves like this with sound effects of gunfire. Come on, guys. Don't fall for this propaganda. Target practice? What is this bullshit?
Proper investigation into that, because that was said on British national television, that children were coming in with patterns of clusters of sniper fire as if they'd been used as target practice. Right, so, yeah, you can come here and you can attack the United Nations. You can say they're the villains. You can blame Hamas for everything. But my final point to you, Major Spillman, about your big, lengthy diatribe there about me, about United Nations and everything else, is you quote Simwa and talk about this is what he wanted. Actually, what he wanted when he did what he did on October the 7th is lure Israel into a response that was so wholly disproportionate, it would alienate Israel from the rest of the world.
Yep.
And that is what's happening. And that's what you don't see is happening because you are so convinced of your moral right here that you do not see the wood for the trees. And I say that as somebody who supported Israel for many months. As you know, to my personal cost, I was attacked virulently from the other side. But there comes a point when Israel's friends, those who've always supported Israel have to stand up and say, enough of this. Enough of this carnage. It is getting you nowhere. You're not dismantling Hamas. You're not getting hostages freed. You've got starving kids now dying on a daily basis. Enough. So that's my response to you.
Piers, I hear one lack of a word that comes out of your mouth with this entire statement, and I can agree with you that there's hunger in Gaza, which is Hamas. You throw out the word Sinwar. You blame Israeli opinion on Smotrich. I have news for you. The Israeli people are not defined by Smotrich, and the Israeli people do not all want to raise the white flag and go home. This is a consistent theme where Smotrich wants to cleanse Gaza and every Israeli just wants to fold the white flag. No, there's another alternative, which is I'm not willing to go to sleep, and neither would you, Piers, with Hamas remaining in Gaza. And you are correct. Sinwar planned this. His queen, his bet was the international media and the United Nations. He knew Israel will move the population. They'll be blamed for displacement. Israel will try to feed the population. And when Hamas steals the food, Israel will be blamed for the food. He predicted every single thing that's happening. Israel could have ended this conflict by bombing this from the sky. We did not need to drop telegrams to everybody there. We didn't need to move the population. We lost 4 soldiers today. They never had to die. They didn't need to go into a tank. We could have taken care of everything from the air. The only reason we did not, and we know where hostages are, there's plenty of other areas where Hamas is hiding, is because we are trying in the most difficult situation, a situation that no one has ever fought in, to kill Hamas that is planned in advance to hide behind their own people, knowing they don't care about those lives, knowing that when they die, I will go on Piers Morgan. Piers Morgan will say Israel doesn't have a chance. You can't defeat Hamas. They've recruited 5 times the people. These are not true. Hamas is on its last legs. Its leadership has been completely destroyed. Israel, as you said, have taken over 77% of the territory and moved their civilian population, which is remarkable, to an area that's not perfect, but is mostly out of the way of the fighting. And you have humanitarian aid that Hamas steals from trucks. And when Israel tries to fix the situation, all of a sudden the UN says, no, we're willing to go in there, we're willing to work, but it's so disorganized. Where the hell were you for 21 months when Hamas stole the trucks? There's no proof, by the way. That report that USA took out is a complete farce. It is based on what they said. They cannot verify the recipients of the aid, meaning the aid is going to people and they cannot verify who they are. So if those people are Hamas, they can't verify it. The 60,000 people that you say that have been killed, that we both know that doesn't differentiate between combatants and civilians. Piers, it's the exact same discussion again and again.
Also, the number is going up by about 100 people every single day. Seems a bit odd that it's going exactly by 100 people. It's because they're inflating the numbers like no other time.
And once again, everything negative about Israel. We're the only democracy in this Israel. We're fighting for our lives against an enemy 2 miles away. And all you can do is bring Tom Fletcher, talk about everything that Israel's doing. Now you supported Israel for years, but when the going is getting tough, you'll look back in 20 years when the smoke clears and you will see that you turned, unfortunately, you misunderstand Israel today. You misunderstand the will of our people, and you would never leave your own family on the border with Hamas on the other side. That is the bottom line.
I'll include the link to the full video in the link in the description so you can watch the whole thing. Israel is taking the extra mile to make sure people are not starving. They're telling people to evacuate. They provided the Gazans with nearly 2 million tons of aid since October 7th. Don't tell me that Israel is trying to systematically starve the Gazans. Even with the blockade where no aid was going in, they still had enough food for 8 months. They started complaining after 2. Something doesn't add up. People are trying to lie to you, and we are here to expose the lies. Thank you for watching this video. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. If you'd like to support me financially, you can do that using Buy Me Coffee or Patreon down in the links in the description. If you'd like to join the Discord, it's in the link below, and you can also become a YouTube member and enjoy specific YouTube perks. Thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next video.